Today I sign the transfer. The sustenance of your life is no longer in your hands. It's in mine. And from this moment forward, that's not a hope anymore. It's a done deal. What you've been carrying alone for years, I've taken back now, with the authority that was always mine. Authority you, without realizing it, tried to wield by yourself for way too long. It's over. You're not going to have to keep sustaining your own life with your own two hands. Stick around until the end, because before this message finishes, you're going to recognize the signs that this transfer has already started manifesting in your life, even before you see the money move around in your account. Some of those signs have already happened this week, and you didn't even realize they carried my signature. I didn't come here to promise you some distant miracle. I came to give you back a place that should never have left my hands. You opened your banking app again tonight. Sitting on the toilet, door locked because it was the only spot in the house where nobody would ask why you were so quiet. You redid the same math for the 10th time, hoping the number would change just by staring at it again. It didn't. And still, you looked again and again, as if repetition could make the balance stretch further than it actually went. You woke up at 3 in the morning without really knowing why. It wasn't a noise. It wasn't a bad dream. It was your mind which never truly shut off, calculating debt while your body was still asleep. You just lay there, in the dark, adding up numbers on the ceiling of your bedroom, trying to make what comes in match what goes out, as if that silent exercise, done alone at 3 in the morning, could change anything before dawn. You took inventory of the night. What still hasn't come in? The paycheck that got delayed, the payment they promised and never sent, the answer that was supposed to arrive by text and never showed up. You lay there counting what's missing, instead of counting what you already have. And that list was the last thing running through your head before you finally drifted off, exhausted from managing a problem that was never supposed to be yours alone. You typed "I'm fine" with your hand shaking. Not because you were lying out of malice, but because you didn't have the energy left to explain that the month didn't add up again, and the person on the other end never knew what it cost you to write those 2 words. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video. And the person on the other end never knew what it cost you to write those 2 words. You smiled on the video call a few minutes later, voice steady, while inside you were running the same old numbers. It's not weakness. It never was. It's the weight of carrying, all by yourself, a role that was never yours to carry alone. You stood tall when nobody was watching how much effort that took. That counts. That has always counted, even when it felt like nobody was counting. You learned to smile in public and close the books in silence at home. You learned to say everything was fine while rearranging, on the inside, priorities nobody should have to rearrange alone. And you did it for so long that you started thinking that was just adult life, just the price of being responsible. It wasn't. It was a borrowed burden I never wanted you to carry to the finish line by yourself. If those scenes hit a little too close to home, hit that like button right now. It's not video vanity. The like is your public amen. Heaven registers what you confess out in the open, and what you confess in the open starts losing its power to keep you hidden in the dark. 3 promises before anything else, because everything that comes after only makes sense if these 3 are anchored in you first. First, the financial anxiety that follows you around is not a lack of faith, and it's not a character flaw. It's a symptom of carrying a position that was never yours, the position of being the ultimate provider for your own life. Nobody, Absolutely nobody was designed to carry that role alone, and the exhaustion you feel is exactly your body and soul telling you that weight is too heavy for one person. Second, the protocol I'm going to give you today reassigns who sustains what, returning to me the place I never actually left, even when you forgot I was there, even when the silence felt like absence. This reassignment isn't theory, it's practical, and you're going to walk away from this message knowing exactly what to do with your hands and your mouth. Third, by the end of this message, you'll be able to declare with your mouth and your body that your sustenance is in hands that don't fail. Not because your circumstances will have changed yet, but because the responsibility will have already changed addresses. I know about the nights you redid the same math until it stopped making sense. I know you added it up, and the total never balanced on its own, because a part of that burden was never meant to fit in your two hands. I saw every late night, every app you opened, every sigh you held back so you wouldn't wake the person next to you. I saw, and today I'm taking over what was always mine. Stick around until the end. What's coming next will change how you look at your bank statement tomorrow morning. Close your eyes, if it's safe to do that where you are right now, or just look away from the screen for a moment and let what I'm about to show you sink in without noise. There are signs that this transfer I made has already started to show up. Some are small. Some you've already seen and called coincidence. Let's name every single one. The first sign is the money that stretched a little further at the end of the month, without you being able to explain exactly where you saved. You probably called that luck, or an easier month. It wasn't. It was me rearranging resources before you even realized you needed them, cutting one expense here, delaying a bill there, without you lifting a finger. The second sign is an unexpected income door knocking, an offer that came without you looking for it, a job opportunity, a referral, a chance that came out of nowhere, or at least that's how it seemed. It wasn't out of nowhere. It was a seed I planted a long time ago, and it's germinating now, right on time, not on the timeline you would have picked. The third sign is a strange piece about a debt that used to steal your sleep. Not because it disappeared. It's still there, on paper, on the bill, in its name. But it stopped being the owner of your mind at 3 a.m. That's not complacency, and it's not you just giving up on the problem. That's certainty moving in where there used to be nothing but calculations, taking up the space that was once pure anxiety. The fourth sign is the right people showing up with resources or referrals without you having to beg for it. Someone you didn't even expect reached out with a solution. That wasn't a scheduling coincidence. That was provision walking toward you, because I already sent word to the people who needed to reach you. Pay attention to the faces that have shown up in the last few weeks, even the ones that seemed temporary. Some of them carried exactly what you needed, and you might not even have noticed yet. The next sign is the hardest one to hear. It's the one the enemy spent the most time trying to get you to ignore, because he knows that if you recognize this one, the control is over for good. The fifth sign is a sudden, almost uncomfortable urge to stop calculating everything on your own and just trust. You'll feel this like an invitation to let go of the control you held onto for so long. And part of you will resist because calculating seemed like the only thing that gave you a sense of control. But it didn't. It was just wearing you out. Notice what's happening here. You tried to control the provision by calculating. I want to give you the provision by trusting. You tried to guarantee tomorrow by forecasting every penny. I already guaranteed your tomorrow before you were even born. These are two different logics, and you can't live in both at the same time. At some point, one of them has to give. If any of those signs have already happened to you this week, write free in the comments right now. You don't need to explain which one. Just write it, because naming it is the first step to recognizing that what's changing isn't coincidence, it's response. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to show you won't work if your attention is split between this screen and 3 other things at the same time. Give this whole next minute to what's coming. There's a woman in Zarephath. in the first book of Kings, chapter 17, who was gathering the last few sticks to make the last loaf of bread for herself and her son. There was no more flour in the jar after that day. There was no more oil in the jug. The drought had taken everything, and she had resigned herself to eating that piece of bread and dying with her son, because there was nothing left beyond that. It was right there, at rock bottom, that a prophet named Elijah asked her for something that seemed impossible to ask. He asked her to make him a loaf of bread first, before making one for herself and her son. Not because the prophet was selfish, because that request was, in reality, a test of surrender. Trust that has to come before seeing any result. She gave what little she had, with no guarantee that anything would be left over. And from that day on, the flour in the jar never ran out, and the oil in the jug never failed until the day the rain came back to the land. It wasn't a miracle that filled her pantry all at once. It was daily provision, constant, exactly the right amount of need. No more, no less. Notice that she didn't receive one giant deposit that solved everything forever. She received exactly enough, every single day, and she had to go back to that jar and that jug over and over again, trusting each morning that the little bit would still be enough. That's the provision I'm offering you too. Steady, faithful, renewed. Not necessarily the size your anxiety would want to see all at once. You aren't being called to have everything solved before you trust. You're being called to give up the little you already have. Today, before you see the provision multiply. That's how it's always worked. Faith comes before the visible miracle, not after it. If the widow had waited for the jar to fill up before she believed, she never would have made that first loaf, and the flour never would have multiplied, because the miracle was tied to the surrender, not the other way around. Now imagine a river that runs all year long, even during the harshest dry months, when no rain has fallen on the region for weeks. The people who live near that river look at it and think it comes from some visible source on the surface, but that's not what keeps its volume up. There's an underground spring, one that no map shows, running beneath the earth, feeding that river the whole time, especially when everything around it is dry. Your provision works the same way. It doesn't come from what you see on the surface of your life, from the balance that shows up on your phone screen. It's already flowing underneath, invisible, even before it shows up in your account. The fact that you haven't seen the result yet doesn't mean the source has stopped. It just means it's still running underground, right on schedule to emerge. What truly sustains was never visible first. It was faithful first. The flour that never ran out wasn't seen before, it was trusted. The spring that feeds the river never appears on the map before it sustains the entire drought, and your sustenance won't appear first and then become trustworthy. It's already trustworthy, and that's why it will appear. The order that anxiety tries to impose on you, see first, then believe, was never heaven's order. In heaven, it was always believe first, then see. If that image reached you, write spring in the comments, or write flour that never runs out. Whatever makes the most sense for what you're living through right now. That word will remind you, days from now, that the source never stopped flowing, even when you couldn't see it. Let me pause for a full minute before moving on to what comes next. You got here carrying all the calculations alone, with nobody clapping for it. Nobody posted on social media about the invisible effort of keeping the bills standing. Nobody knows how many times you recalculated the same amount, trying to make the number stretch further than it could actually go on its own. And even without a stage, without applause, without anyone knowing the size of the effort, you kept going. You kept the house standing. You kept the bill standing. You kept your commitment standing, even when everything inside felt like it was about to collapse. And you did it, without most of the people around you even suspecting how hard it was. Some even thought it was easy for you, because you never let on how much it cost. You prayed for provision more times than you ever told anyone. Quick prayers, in traffic, in the bathroom, in the grocery line, while doing mental math to see if you could afford everything in the cart. Not every prayer needs a witness to be heard, and every single one of them made it through. None got lost along the way. Not even the shortest ones. Not even the ones you said without the patience to finish the sentence. And here's the fact you've probably forgotten. In the middle of all that calculating, you've already seen God provide before. You've had months that came together with no logical explanation. You've had bills get resolved in ways you didn't plan. You just forgot to count that as provision because it came in a different way than you expected, and you had decided, without realizing it, that you would only count it as an answer if it arrived exactly the way you imagined. That's not how I work. I never promised to show up the way you planned. I promised to show up, and every time I showed up differently than you expected, and you still survived, ate, paid the bills, held things together, that was my hand right there, even without a visible signature. I know the exhaustion of being apparently the only one who cared whether the numbers added up. I know you looked around and felt like you were carrying it alone, even surrounded by people. But I never let go of the other end of that rope. I was just waiting for the right moment to show you that, and that moment is now. And here is who you are inside all of this. Not what you did, but what I always saw in you, even when you couldn't see it in yourself. What you're about to hear is not a human title. It's what I call you when I speak to heaven about you. These are identities that existed before you tried to carry the weight of sustenance alone, and they still exist now that I've taken back my place. Sustained child. That's the first one. A short declaration, but it carries the weight of years. I saw you trying to solve on your own what was always meant to be shared with me. I saw every attempt to make the numbers balance using only your own strength, your own strategy, your own sweat. I saw the sleepless nights trying to find a way out that depended entirely on you, and I never asked you to do that alone. This identity authorizes you to stop carrying provision as your own job and return it to the one it always belonged to, without guilt, without shame for needing help. Faithful steward. That's the second one. Also stated as fact, not as some distant compliment. I saw faithfulness in you in the little things, even before you saw the big things. I saw you share when you had almost nothing, offer what was left over even when hardly anything was left. I saw you stay honest when you could have done differently, when nobody would have known if you took the easier path. I saw you give thanks for leftovers while dreaming of abundance, without letting the waiting sour your gratitude. This identity authorizes you to manage with peace what you already have today, without needing to have everything to start trusting. Channel of provision. That's the third one, and maybe the one that expands what you thought about yourself the most. I saw the purpose of sustenance flowing through you to reach other people too, not stopping at you. I saw the day when you'll look at someone in need, recognize your own past pain, and reach out your hand exactly the way I reached out mine to you. What I'm putting back in your hands isn't just for you to keep. It's for you to hold with openness, knowing that soon someone will need what passes through you. This identity authorizes you to expect to be used as a provision answer for someone and not just as the one who always receives. Write in the comments the name of the identity that just hit you the hardest. Sustained child, faithful steward, or channel of provision. And if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, now is the time. Because I'm going to keep calling you by your right name in every message that comes after this one. From scarcity to abundance. From calculation to trust. From shame of asking to freedom of receiving. From carrying alone to walking sustained. That's what's happening to you right now. Layer by layer, even if it's not all showing up in your statement yet. Now comes the protocol I promised back at the beginning, what I call the Sustenance Surrender Protocol. 3 simple steps, but they require something from you that calculation never did. They require surrender. Step 1. Get a physical piece of paper. Real paper, not a note on your phone. There's something about writing with your own hand that a keyboard doesn't replace. A greater exposure, a greater commitment to what's being said. and write down the 3 biggest financial weights you're carrying right now. Don't generalize. Write the exact name, the exact amount, the exact date, if there is one. The more specific you are, the more real the surrender becomes. Step 2. With the paper in your hand, surrender each one of those weights out loud, naming them specifically to me. Not God, take care of my finances in a generic way. It's, Father, I surrender this specific bill, this specific rent, this specific debt with this specific name. Specificity is what turns a venting session into actual surrender. Step 3. Keep that paper in a visible place, in your wallet, on your mirror, inside your Bible, somewhere you'll see it again in the coming days. Not to keep calculating, to remind yourself that the responsibility has changed hands and that weight is no longer yours alone. Every time your eyes fall on that paper, the reminder isn't of debt, it's of surrender. The sign that the surrender really happened isn't euphoria. It's not an explosive feeling of happiness, not an immediate visible proof that the money has already moved. It's stillness. A quiet peace about money, even before you see any change in your balance. The kind of peace that has no logical explanation because it wasn't born from any circumstance, it was born from surrender. If you feel that in the coming days, it's because the protocol worked. If you're receiving this protocol now and you intend to apply it today, write "received" in the comments. That's not formality. It's your first step of surrender in public before you even hold the paper in your hands. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be launched against you. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. The enemy is not going to let this transfer happen without resistance, because he knows exactly what he loses when you stop carrying it alone. The first tactic is called obsessional calculation. It comes disguised as responsibility, almost like a virtue. It'll whisper to you that redoing the math for the 20th time is financial maturity, that checking your balance every hour is prudence. It's not. It's your mind getting stuck again in the cycle I already asked you to surrender, and every time you fall back into that cycle, just go back to the same paper you signed today and remember that the responsibility has changed hands. The second tactic is called provision comparison. It comes disguised as, "I'm just keeping up with the world," while in reality it's measuring your own faith by someone else's financial results. You'll see someone prospering in a different way than you, traveling, buying things, celebrating, and you'll be tempted to think your faith is worth less because of it. It's not. Someone else's provision was never the thermometer of your faith, and it never will be. The third tactic is called shame of asking. It comes disguised as, "I don't want to bother God with something so small, so material," pulling you away from praying specifically about money. As if asking for provision were less spiritual than asking for peace or healing. It's not. I care about your bill just as much as I care about your heart. And there's an internal enemy, quieter than the 3 from outside. It's the voice that whispers, if God were really going to provide, he would have done it by now. That voice doesn't come from faith. It comes from impatience disguised as logic, and it's the most dangerous of the 4 because it doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like reasoning. It even feels like maturity, when in reality it's just exhaustion trying to justify itself with pretty words. You'll recognize that voice because it always shows up after a hard day, never after a good one. It picks the moment when you're already tired to suggest that maybe none of this is real, that maybe today's surrender was just a passing emotion. Don't listen to it over the next 72 hours. What was signed today doesn't depend on your mood tomorrow. If you recognize these 3 tactics and you decide right now that they will not govern you in the next 72 hours, write "protected" in the comments. The decree was sealed the moment you wrote that word in public. Now place the palm of your hand open, facing upward, on your chest or in your lap. Posture of someone receiving, not holding. Close your eyes if it's safe to do so right now. Take a deep breath, slowly. Once, there are burdens you've brought here that I want you to surrender out loud right now. The 3 a.m. calculation, the one that wakes you up without any apparent reason. The shame of asking for money, as if that were less important than asking for anything else. The fear that there won't be enough tomorrow, even when today balanced out. Name these 3 burdens out loud and let go of each one with the palm of your hand open. I saw you in the bathroom, door locked, redoing the same math for the 10th time, hoping the number would change just from staring at it. I was there. I saw every digit you added up alone, thinking nobody was watching, thinking you had to solve it before leaving that bathroom and going back to smiling for the rest of the house. I saw you awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling in the dark, doing math in silence so you wouldn't wake anyone next to you. I saw that you never told anyone how many nights you spent like that, calculating debt while everyone else was sleeping peacefully, thinking it was normal, thinking it was part of being an adult, being responsible. It wasn't normal. It was a weight I wanted to carry with you, and you hadn't surrendered it to me yet. I saw the inventory you took lying down, counting what hadn't arrived yet. The delayed paycheck, the promised payment, the answer that was supposed to come. I saw you fall asleep, worried more often than you fell asleep in peace, and I kept every single one of those nights because none of them went unnoticed by me, even when it seemed like they went unnoticed by everyone else. I saw the "I'm fine" you typed with your hand shaking, hiding that the month didn't balance, hiding it so you wouldn't worry the people you love. I read that message before it was sent, and I know what it cost to write those 2 little words covering a big pain. I know you smiled right after, on the call, voice steady, while inside you recalculated everything all over again. I saw that too, and none of those masks fooled me for even a second, because I never needed you to pretend anything in front of me. From today, I cover your mind so it stops calculating alone at 3 in the morning. I cover your relationship so you don't have to pretend I'm fine when you're not, so you actually have someone to tell when the month is hard. I cover the timing of your provision so it arrives at the right moment. Not early, not late. Exactly when you most need to recognize it came from me. And I cover every area of your financial life. What already has a name? What doesn't even have a shape yet? Because from today, sustenance is no longer your burden, it's my signature, and a signature of mine does not go back on itself. I now send you back to your life. Not as someone who carries alone, but as someone who has finally returned the job to the right hands. You'll go back to the same house, the same job, maybe even the same unpaid bill, but you won't go back carrying it the same way. Because from now on, I walk ahead of that bill, not behind it. Say it out loud right now, even if it's just a whisper. My sustenance is surrendered. From today, it's his. Repeat it if you need to. Let these words leave your mouth, because the spoken declaration seals what the open hand just released. It is done. What was surrendered here was truly surrendered, and you are not the same person you were when this message began. If this word reached you, write "done" in the comments right now. Don't keep this to yourself. Leave it registered in public that today was the day sustenance changed hands. And if you know someone who is right in the middle of that same exhaustion, someone who reopens their banking app every night trying to make the numbers add up on their own, someone who has typed "I'm fine" with a shaking hand more times than they'd like to admit, send this message to that person now before you close the video. Don't send it to a whole group with no specific person in mind. Think of one specific person right now, someone whose face already came to your mind while you were listening, and send it just to them. They might need to hear this today as much as you did, and if they want to go beyond what was given freely here today, the link is in the first comment. Waiting the same way it waited for you. Without rush, without pressure. Just available for when they're ready. In the next video, I'm going to show you what happens after the provision starts manifesting and how to recognize when it's coming through a path you would never have chosen on your own. Stay tuned for that next step, because what I started today, I don't leave half finished. It is done. You are not the same person you were when this message began. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right. and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.